Welcome, dear listener, to a journey that begins with a single flame. It is no ordinary fire, but one said to be touched by a goddess. Athena, the bringer of wisdom, the guardian of vision, gifted it long ago. Her flame is not meant to burn, but to guide, to reveal, to illuminate. The ancients called it the eternal vision flame, a light that never fades. It lives not in temples of stone alone, but in the spirit of all who seek. Imagine dawn rising over Athens, the city bathed in quiet golden light. A single flame flickers at the heart of a temple, steady, calm, eternal. Travelers, poets, scholars, and sailors come to stand before its glow. They find not answers, but clarity, a way to see their path with courage. This is not a tale of conquest, but a vision of minds opening to truth. It is a story of a flame that whispers of balance and deeper understanding. You will walk with me through myths where wisdom shines brighter than steel. Tonight, the flame calls you too, inviting you to see with Athena's eyes. The eternal vision flame awaits, steady as the heartbeat of timeless light. The first light of dawn stretches across the hills and spills over the marble of ancient Athens. Shadows retreat slowly, as if unwilling to leave the embrace of the quiet night. The temple rises in silence, its columns reaching upward like arms lifted to the heavens. At its center, a flame breathes gently, alive yet calm, fragile yet eternal. This is the eternal vision flame, glowing with a soft brilliance that never fades away. It does not consume wood or oil as ordinary fires do, for it is born of divine thought. The people of the city awaken, their steps guided toward the temple's high gates. They come not in fear, but in reverence, carrying questions and hopes in their hearts. The air hums with a quiet rhythm, as if the stones themselves remember the goddess. Athena's presence lingers here, not in form, but in the light that steadies all who enter. Travelers pause at the steps, weary from long roads yet lifted by the flame's calm glow. Scholars arrive with scrolls in hand, seeking not answers, but clarity of vision. Mothers bring children to see the flame, their eyes wide with wonder at its endless light. Sailors lift their heads to the temple, believing the flame will guide them to safe shores. Even poets linger, their verses shaped by the gentle breath of the divine fire. Inside, the flame burns quietly, untouched by the winds that whisper through the columns. Its glow rests upon the walls, painting them gold, making the temple a living story. Each visitor stands still before it, hearing not words, but feeling the stirrings of truth. Some close their eyes, and within the silence find visions of choices and new beginnings. Others gaze openly, seeing in the flame a mirror of their own courage and doubt. The temple itself is modest, yet it holds a presence greater than any throne or crown. No weapons are placed here, no trophies of conquest, only offerings of thought and prayer. The eternal flame is not a symbol of war, but of wisdom shared and carried forward. Those who leave the temple often say their burdens feel lighter, though nothing has changed. It is as if the flame burns away confusion, leaving only the path they must walk. Legends whisper that the flame was lit when Athena first touched the earth of her city. It is said she offered her light not to rulers alone, but to every soul who would seek it. From that day, the flame has been tended carefully, watched over with sacred devotion. Priestesses move in silence, their lives dedicated to the guardianship of this gentle fire. They do not claim it as their own, but as a gift they merely protect for all who come. The morning sun now lifts higher, and the temple glows as though crowned by light itself. Within its heart, the eternal vision flame burns on, steady as time, endless as hope. Long before the temple rose, there was only the open sky and the earth below. The people of Athens sought guidance, yet their hearts carried more questions than answers. They prayed for vision, not for victory, for wisdom that could endure beyond fleeting power. It is said that Athena, hearing their call, descended in silence upon a clear night. She carried no weapon, no shield, only a spark glowing faintly within her hand. This spark was not fire as mortals knew it, but a flame born of insight and clarity. Athena knelt upon the sacred rock, and where her spark touched, the ground seemed to breathe. A light rose, steady and pure, as though the world itself had opened an inner eye. This was the first moment of the eternal vision flame, a gift placed within mortal reach. The people gathered around, hushed by the calm radiance that needed no explanation. Some wept softly, for they felt burdens lifted without a single word being spoken. Others stood still, sensing that the flame revealed not the future, but the strength within. It was not meant to foretell destiny, but to show paths hidden in the shadows of doubt. The elders declared that the flame was no idol, but a mirror of human understanding. From that day, they vowed to keep it alive, not through oil or wood, but through devotion. The first guardians of the flame were chosen, not for rank, but for purity of spirit. They were storytellers, teachers, and healers, charged with tending the flame with care. Every dawn they gathered, offering not sacrifices of blood, but of words and reflection. They spoke of choices, of justice, of harmony between city, earth, and sky. The flame seemed to listen, its glow steadying as though in quiet agreement. Legends tell that children who first saw the flame dreamed of bright futures without fear. Sailors carried the story to far lands, saying the fire was a light that guided hearts. Poets spread its memory in verse, weaving it into songs sung under starry nights. The eternal vision flame grew beyond the Hausel temple, carried in minds across the world. Athena's spark became not a relic, but a living gift that crossed generations. It was whispered that whenever doubt grew heavy, the flame's light would rise anew, not because of divine command, but because humans remembered what it meant to see. The flame was born once, but its true power was to be reborn again in every soul. Through time, it became the silent thread connecting past, present, and tomorrow's hope. And so the birth of the flame was not an ending, but the first breath of wisdom eternal. In the quiet hours of the morning, scholars began to climb the steps of the sacred temple. Their robes brushed against stone, scrolls clutched close, minds alive with questions unspoken. They did not come to worship, but to listen, to sit in silence before the eternal flame. The fire greeted them with its calm glow, neither demanding nor commanding, simply being. It was said that the greatest minds of Athens found clarity not in debate, but in reflection here. The flame was their companion, steady and unchanging, while thoughts within shifted like rivers. Some scholars unrolled parchment, tracing ideas by the light that flickered across the page. Others closed their eyes, whispering quietly as if the fire itself could hear their doubts. They spoke of justice, of truth, of the balance between human desire and divine order. The flame gave no answers, yet in its stillness, wisdom seemed to rise within their hearts. One philosopher described it as a mirror, reflecting not what is, but what could be. Another claimed the flame burned away illusion, leaving only what must be faced honestly. In its light, arguments softened, pride gave way to humility, and vision grew sharper. Some left with new theories, others with quiet certainty. but all carried the flame within. The temple became a gathering place, not for ritual alone, but for the exchange of thought. Ideas born in the presence of the flame traveled into the city, shaping lives and laws. Poets borrowed its glow to frame verses, while leaders sought its calm before decisions. Even artists lingered, sketching the shimmer of light as if capturing wisdom in lines of ink. The flame's power was not to instruct, but to awaken, reminding minds of their hidden depths. It asked nothing, offered no commands, yet gave endlessly to those who dared to reflect. Legends tell of a young student who entered burdened by uncertainty and fear of failure. He sat before the fire all night, saying nothing, only watching its quiet rhythm of light. When dawn came, he rose not with answers, but with the courage to continue his search. That courage itself became his wisdom, a gift he carried through the years to come. The eternal vision flame taught scholars that knowledge was not a prize, but a journey. It reminded them that wisdom did not belong to the few, but to all who sought it. In its glow, Athens flourished, guided not by conquest, but by the pursuit of understanding. The city grew in thought, in art, in dialogue, and the flame became its silent guardian. Through every scholar's word, through every question asked, the fire lived again and again. The eternal flame did not simply burn in the temple, it burned in the pursuit of truth. And so the scholars returned, day after day, to sit before Athena's gift of vision eternal. In the harbor of Athens, the scent of salt and the sound of gulls filled the morning air. Ships rocked gently, their sails waiting for the wind, their crews ready for the open sea. Among the sailors, whispers passed of a flame that offered more than light or warmth. The eternal vision flame, they said, could steady hearts when the horizon seemed uncertain. Before each voyage, captains and crew would climb the stone steps of Athena's temple. Their hands were calloused from rope and oar, yet they carried torches with reverence. They approached the sacred fire not as warriors, but as seekers of courage and guidance. The flame flickered softly, as though listening to their hopes carried on sea-borne breath. Each torch was lowered carefully into its glow, catching fire without smoke or struggle. The sailors watched as their own lights came alive, born from the eternal flame's gift. Some touched their foreheads with the fire's warmth, not to worship, but to remember. They remembered that vision was not only of the eye, but of the heart that steers the soul. When night fell on the waters, their torches burned steadily, bright against endless dark. The men sang songs of home, their voices lifted by the quiet strength the flame inspired. They believed the fire guided them, not by pushing the sea aside, but by calming fear. It reminded them that storms were not enemies, but passages toward distant shores. One tale spoke of a young sailor who trembled at his first sight of the vast horizon. He had lit his torch at the temple, yet still felt the weight of doubt heavy within him. That night, he stood alone on deck, watching the small flame resist the cold sea wind. It did not falter, did not vanish, but burned with a steady patience beyond his own. In that moment, he realized the flame was not about strength, but about endurance. He carried that lesson across many journeys, and in time became captain of his ship. The sailors told such stories often, passing them down like maps drawn in memory. To them, the eternal vision flame was not a charm, but a reminder of inner resolve. It taught that safe passage was not always calm seas, but courage to face their motion. When ships returned to port, their torches were brought back to the temple steps. The flame was returned to its source, unbroken, as though the sea had never touched it. The guardians of the temple welcomed each light, honoring journeys both hard and gentle. The people of Athens listened to the sailors' tales, finding hope in their enduring fire. And so the eternal flame traveled the seas, not in myth alone, but in the hands of men. It became a lantern of vision, guiding not only ships, but the spirit of those who sailed. Through each voyage, Athena's gift reminded them that no distance was too great to cross. Within the temple, where light and silence meet, guardians kept watch over the sacred flame. They were not kings, nor generals, but quiet souls chosen for their patience and devotion. These were the silent guardians, priestesses and priests whose lives were bound to the fire. They rose with dawn, their steps gentle across marble floors, carrying no weapons, only care. Their duty was simple, yet profound. Ensure the eternal vision flame never wavered. But the flame needed no fuel, no oil, no wood, only the steady presence of its keepers. They tended it not with hands, but with ritual, with songs whispered into the morning air. Each note rose like smoke, carrying gratitude, wisdom, and quiet strength into the temple. Visitors often marveled at the guardians' calm, their faces serene as still waters at dusk. Some asked why they gave their lives to a flame that asked for nothing in return. The guardians would smile gently and say, "It is not the flame we protect, but its meaning." They believed the fire was a bridge between mortal thought and Athena's divine clarity. And so, each day, they offered reflections instead of sacrifices, words instead of blood. They told stories of past journeys, of choices made in truth, of lessons carried with care. Children sat at their feet, listening as the guardians spoke of courage born from wisdom. Travelers learned that strength was not conquest, but the vision to see beyond oneself. The guardians lit no torches for their own glory, only to pass the light to others. Through them, the flame was shared, spreading like quiet ripples across the city's soul. It was said their voices carried further than shouts, because they spoke with steady hearts. When storms shook Athens, the guardians kept vigil, singing softly until calm returned. Their presence became a reminder that constancy was itself a kind of sacred strength. Legends tell of one guardian who never spoke, yet her silence taught more than any words. She would sit by the flame day and night, her stillness a lesson in patience and trust. The people who saw her learned that wisdom often shines brightest in quiet example. Another guardian was known for weaving stories into cloth, patterns lit by the flame's glow. Each thread told of balance, of vision, of the light that guides through shadows unseen. Her tapestries hung across the temple, shimmering as if the flame itself lived in them. Thus, the guardians preserved not just fire, but memory, keeping Athena's gift alive. Their watch was unbroken, a chain of devotion stretching through generations of time. They were not feared nor praised, but honored with gratitude from those they guided. In their care, the eternal vision flame was more than fire. It was a living covenant. And so, while cities shifted and years flowed, the guardians stood steady beside the light. Silent keepers of wisdom, they carried Athena's gift, not for themselves, but for all. Legends tell of nights when the eternal flame revealed more than light, when it became a mirror of truth. Those who dared to gaze deeply into its glow often spoke of visions beyond mortal sight. Some saw their past unfold like a tapestry, woven with choices both gentle and unwise. Others saw futures hinted at in shadow and brilliance, a path waiting for courage to walk. The flame was not a prophecy, but a guide, showing not what must be, but what could be. It spoke in symbols, in flickers and gleams, like whispers from Athena herself. A sailor once told of seeing his ship swallowed by storm, yet a star rising beyond waves. He returned to the sea with steady heart, guiding his crew home by faith in that vision. A young woman saw herself weaving threads of gold, binding scattered voices into harmony. She became a poet, her words carrying peace across villages where anger had lingered. Another visitor, a scholar, saw no faces, only books bursting into flame without turning to ash. He understood then that knowledge was not fragile, but eternal when shared with honesty. Each story added to the growing lore, the flame's glow stretching into countless lives. The guardians never explained these visions, nor claimed to control what seekers saw. They believed the flame reflected not the god's will, but the clarity within each soul. It was said the flame did not change people, but revealed what they already carried inside. Like a clear stream, it showed their reflection, even if they wished to look away. Not all who gazed found comfort, for truth can be steady yet unsettling. Some turned from the flame, shaken by glimpses of paths they feared to walk. But even in fear, the light lingered, nudging them gently to return when ready. Athens grew richer, not in gold, but in wisdom, as travelers carried visions home. The flame became known not just as Athena's gift, but as a teacher without words. It reminded all who approached that strength was not found in conquest or crowns. Strength lived in vision, in knowing oneself clearly and choosing with open eyes. Priests often said, "The flame shows the road, but your feet must walk it." And so the eternal vision flame grew into legend, a quiet oracle of the heart. It shone in the center of the city, yet its light reached far beyond stone walls. Through dreamers, poets, and seekers, it became a beacon carried into every corner of Greece. No battle, no storm, no darkness could extinguish the lessons it gave. For the flame was not fire alone. It was the wisdom of sight, eternal and alive. There came a time when the eternal vision flame touched not only temples, but the heart of the whole city. Athens, radiant and alive, found its rhythm often guided by the wisdom of that quiet glow. In the marketplace, merchants told tales of how the flame taught them fairness in trade. One said he once cheated a buyer, but after gazing at the fire, his heart felt heavy with truth. From then on, he weighed goods with care, learning that trust was worth more than profit. Philosophers gathered at dawn, debating not for victory, but for understanding, inspired by the light. They argued gently, weaving ideas as if each word were another spark of the flame. Their discussions echoed through the city, shaping schools of thought that lived for centuries. In the theater, poets and playwrights sought clarity from the flame before writing their lines. Their stories carried lessons of balance, reminding all that wisdom thrives, even in laughter. Sculptors visited the temple to see not just stone, but the form hidden within, waiting to be freed. Each chisel strike was guided by a vision of harmony, not power, a gift from Athena's flame. Even farmers, tending fields far from marble walls, felt the presence of its guidance. They told of dreams in which the flame shone upon their plows, teaching patience with the earth. Harvests, they said, grew richer when planted with care, not haste, under the flame's blessing. Children, too, were brought to the temple, their small eyes wide before the eternal fire. Guardians whispered simple truths. See clearly, act kindly, walk with courage. Those words, paired with a glow, stayed with them long after childhood faded. Athens became more than a city of stone and sea. It became a city of vision. its people lived not in fear of God's wrath, but in pursuit of wisdom and understanding. The eternal vision flame was not worshipped with trembling hands, but with open hearts. It was not a symbol of power, but a promise that clarity belonged to all who sought it. Even strangers from distant lands carried its memory back across seas and mountains. They told of a city where light was not used for war, but for guiding minds to peace. The fame of the flame grew, yet it remained steady, unchanged, humble in its glow. It did not ask for temples of gold, only that its vision be carried forward. Through markets, theaters, fields, and homes, the light of Athena's gift quietly endured. And so, Athens blossomed, not by conquest, but by the wisdom its people shared. The eternal vision flame had become not only a fire in a temple, but a heartbeat in a city. A light that reminded every citizen, to see clearly is to live fully, and to live wisely. As the years flowed, the eternal vision flame became more than a treasure of Athens. It became a guide to all of Greece. Messengers carried stories of its light across seas and mountains, speaking of a fire that revealed truth. Cities far from Athens sent seekers to stand before the flame, hoping to touch its quiet wisdom. They returned with tales of clarity, carrying lessons that shaped their homes and their people. In Sparta, warriors who once prized only strength began to honor discipline as a form of wisdom. They saw in the flame a reminder that courage without vision was a blade without a handle. In Corinth, traders spoke of how the flame revealed fairness as the true path to lasting prosperity. Their markets grew not only with goods, but with trust, which proved more valuable than silver. In Thebes, storytellers wove visions of the flame into their myths, shaping new legends for children. The fire was no longer only Athena's gift to Athens, but a gift to all who dared to see. Even distant islands whispered of the light, though many had never set eyes upon it. For the flame traveled not in embers, but in the words and hearts of those it touched. It was said that every vision born before the flame became a seed, carried on the wind. Some grew into art, some into laws, some into small acts of kindness that changed quiet lives. The influence of the flame spread like sunlight, reaching places where no torch could burn. And yet, it never diminished, never weakened, remaining steady in its temple. The guardians knew the truth. A flame shared does not fade, it multiplies. Philosophers wrote that it was not fire at all, but the reflection of human potential. To see clearly was to become a bearer of the light, carrying Athena's wisdom into the world. And so, the eternal vision flame became a bond, tying distant cities together in silent kinship. It was not an empire of stone, nor a crown of gold, but an invisible thread of understanding. Leaders began to consult not oracles of war, but travelers who had stood before the fire. Decisions made with vision, they learned, endured longer than those made with haste. Even when storms of conflict rose, the memory of the flame urged people to seek balance. In this way, Greece was shaped not only by battles and rulers, but by a single quiet light. It proved that wisdom could travel further than armies, and truth could last longer than walls. The eternal vision flame had become not just a gift, but a legacy. A reminder that what shines in one city can illuminate the whole world. And still, in its temple, it burned, steady and eternal, waiting for new seekers to arrive. There came a time when doubts whispered through Athens, as shadows often follow even the brightest light. Some asked if the eternal flame was truly divine, or simply a story woven by human hope. Philosophers debated its nature, not with anger, but with curiosity and searching hearts. Was it Athena's direct gift, or the reflection of wisdom already dwelling within mortals? One thinker argued that the flame was no more sacred than the sun rising each morning. Another replied that the sun itself might be sacred, for it too was a light that guided. These debates filled the agora, the air alive with questions rather than certain answers. Yet the flame did not waver, as if to say that truth has no need for defense. Pilgrims still arrived, standing in silence, their visions unfolding with quiet clarity. The guardians, calm as ever, welcomed seekers without demanding belief or proof. They reminded all who entered, the flame does not ask what you believe, only what you seek. Some left comforted, others unsettled, but each carried something they could not deny. In this way, the eternal flame became not just a light of faith, but of inquiry. It encouraged minds to look deeper, to question, to see with eyes unclouded by fear. For wisdom is not blind devotion, but the courage to ask and the patience to listen. A story tells of a child who asked a guardian if the flame ever lied. The guardian smiled gently and said, "The flame shows what is there, but not all will like it." That answer traveled through Athens, reminding people that clarity is not always comfort. Still, doubt did not weaken the city. It sharpened its vision, like iron honed to edge. Athenians learned that questioning was not rebellion, but another path to wisdom. The eternal vision flame became both mystery and mirror, an eternal invitation to reflect. It showed that light does not silence questions, but illuminates them with greater clarity. The people began to say, "The flame belongs not to the gods alone, but to all who dare to see." And so, even in doubt, reverence remained, not for what was certain, but for what was possible. The flame endured, steady as ever, offering its gift to every heart that approached with honesty. Thus, Athens discovered that doubt itself could be sacred, when guided by the light of vision. The eternal flame was no less divine for being questioned, for it lived not in answers, but in the search. And those who stood before it left knowing this. To seek truth was itself a form of worship. The eternal flame stood unwavering as years turned into centuries, and centuries into quiet legend. Athens had changed, its streets filled with voices of traders, poets, and children who knew only peace. Yet through the shifting tides of time, the flame continued to burn, steady and untouched by decay. Travelers came still, not for miracles, but for the quiet knowing the fire seemed always to give. They said it whispered not in words, but in a warmth that settled deep within the human heart. Some claimed the flame showed visions of what might come, others only felt clarity in their questions. It mattered little, for each left with a sense that they had touched something greater than themselves. Athena's presence was never loud, never thunderous, but gentle as a guiding hand, unseen yet certain. The guardians grew old and passed their duty to others, who served with humility and silent devotion. Their oath was not to guard against danger, but to protect the silence in which vision could live. Poets wrote of the flame as a mirror of the soul, a fire that reflected inner truth. Philosophers argued less over its nature and more over what it asked of those who stood before it. Some believed it taught courage, others discipline, and still others the art of listening without rushing to answer. Generations wove the flame into stories for children, teaching them that wisdom is both light and journey. Even as empires rose and fell, the eternal flame became a quiet anchor, untouched by ambition or war. It did not choose sides, did not claim nations, but remained a gift for all who sought vision. A legend spread that if the flame were ever to die, it would not be from time. Instead, it would fade only when humankind no longer wished to see truth with open hearts. And so long as one seeker arrived with honesty, the fire would endure, endless as the stars. Pilgrims whispered prayers not for power, but for clarity, asking to see the path before their feet. Some prayed to find kindness, others to forgive, others to understand the world with gentler vision. The flame did not grant wishes, but it gave strength to walk the path each vision revealed. Stories tell of an old woman who once stood before it and saw only her younger self. She wept, not from sorrow, but from joy at realizing she had carried wisdom within all along. Thus the flame taught quietly that Athena's true gift was not fire, but the awakening of the soul. In time, Athens itself became known as the city of clear sight, guided by wisdom over fear. The eternal vision flame did not shine for glory nor fame, but to remind humanity to see. It was never a relic of the past, but a living promise of what could be understood. And so it burned on, a silent companion, a teacher without voice, a light for every generation. The eternal flame of Athena, unending and eternal, remained the vision that never faded, never dimmed. The eternal vision flame of Athena stood still, quiet and unbroken, as if time itself bowed before its glow. Its light had touched countless lives, shaping destinies, inspiring hearts, and guiding souls through the shadows of doubt. It did not roar like firestorms, nor blaze like the sun, but glowed steadily, whispering wisdom to those who listened. Generations came and went, yet the flame remained, a thread that bound humanity to the divine essence of vision. Athens became more than a city of marble and stone. It was a sanctuary where thought and spirit walked together. Children grew hearing the stories, not of battles or conquest, but of clarity, truth, and the courage to seek. The guardians kept their silent vigil, not as protectors of fire, but as keepers of peace for seeking souls. They reminded every visitor that the flame could not be owned nor contained, but only witnessed with open hearts. Some came in hope, others in despair, but all left lighter, carrying within them a spark of its eternal light. And so, the flame became not just Athena's gift, but a bridge between mortals and the wisdom of eternity. The people learned that true vision is not given in power, but in the stillness of honest reflection. It was said the flame revealed no more than the soul was ready to face, no less than it needed. This was its gift, not answers carved in stone, but questions shining like stars in the night of the mind. Through these questions, Athens grew not with swords, but with words, not with fear, but with understanding and grace. The eternal flame taught that wisdom is not a destination, but a journey walked step by step in courage. And so long as humanity dared to see, dared to question, dared to grow, the fire would endure. Even when travelers carried its story beyond Athens, to distant lands, its essence remained unbroken, alive in memory. Because the flame was never truly fire alone, but a mirror of the divine spark already within each soul. Those who felt its warmth knew. Athena's vision was not bound to a shrine, but lived within their hearts. The city became a beacon, not for its temples, but for its people, who carried wisdom like a torch. Legends whispered that even the stars bowed slightly, recognizing the endurance of a light born from pure truth. And though time would turn cities to dust, the eternal flame story would pass on. The stories always do. For no empire lasts forever, but wisdom, once awakened, walks through generations like an unseen companion. In the end, the flame was not just Athena's blessing, but a promise. That vision could never die. It was the gentle vow that truth, however quiet, would always shine if only one soul sought to see. And so the eternal vision flame burned on, timeless and tender, a light for all, a vision without end.